are my savior, Jacob Downs.
Tell me more.
You are my knight in shining armor.
Well,
You know why?
maybe, but tell the people. Brag on me, why don't you?
Right before we started filming this episode, we were walking our dog Denver because, as you all know, he's a little bit rowdy. He's 3. He's a ton of fun, but he has a lot of energy.
He's got to get his walkies in.
Yeah, so I've pretty much trained him for walkies because also, as you guys know, I walk a lot. I walk pretty much every day, like 3 to 4 miles a day. Definitely get my 10K steps in. And then we also both lift weights, which I've also talked about this a little bit with Jacob before, but I've dabbled with the idea of starting like a fitness page. I don't know if I ever really would.
I think you would crush it. I think right now it's more of a bandwidth issue.
Yeah, I just don't have the time.
You don't have the time. But if you ever get freed up to where that's a real possibility, I think you'd crush it.
Well, here's the thing. I'm just going to share this. We didn't talk about sharing this, but I'm just going to say it.
I'm scared.
Jacob and I are trying for a baby right now. Look at his face.
Wow, we're sharing that. Okay. All right.
We're trying for kids, and nothing's happened yet. So, like, I'm not pregnant. Nobody freak out. But maybe you'll see a pregnancy announcement in a couple months. Maybe it'll be a while. We don't know.
In God's timing.
Yeah, we're open to the Lord's timing. And we were debating about sharing it, but you know me. I can't keep a secret.
Yeah, thanks, babe. That's cool. Guys, being married to Taylor, you just have to be, and not that I'm going to give advice to anybody on being married to my wife. My experience in being married to you is that you just have to be willing to go with the flow. You never really know what you're going to get. You know the Forrest Gump quote, life is like a box of chocolates. That's you. You never know what you're going to get.
What does that even mean?
It's
like
it's
I'm
like
unpredictable?
my mama said, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah, so is it like I'm unpredictable? Like you don't know
what
I'm going to do?
In a good way.
Well,
you just keep me on my toes.
I'm predictable, babe. I always share everything.
You're predictably unpredictable.
Yeah, and this is why I think in some ways the Lord really did equip me for doing social media because I'm pretty open.
Extremely open.
And
as you can tell.
And here's the thing, you know, it's pregnancy and babies is such a weird thing because most people keep it very private. And I felt this sense of like, I need to keep it private for some reason, but not really because I want to. I think just because it's like stereotypically you don't share those things. Like you don't tell the world like, oh, we're trying to have a baby. I guess maybe because if something goes wrong, then you have to tell the world about it. But at the same time, I'm like, just because you guys know I'm trying, nobody will know when I get pregnant.
Yeah, it's true.
Until I want to announce it. But I guess I can let you guys know that too, because we're in kind of a crazy season right now of, thinking about having kids and trying for kids.
It's the realest life update we could provide.
Yeah.
It's a big shift for us. I mean, you guys know the story of we had a miscarriage in January. That was our first. And so just, it was really wounding and really challenging. We had a whole podcast about it, but we've had to work up the courage to get back to this place. And I'm super proud of you, by the way. Now that we're on that subject, I am. I'm really proud of you for the courage that you've shown to get back to this place. And I'm excited to have a family with you. You're going to be the best mama.
Thanks, babe. Going back to the lifting and the working out, kind of the reason why I even bring up trying for kids is because I have had, and we should talk about this in another episode because this is not what today's episode is supposed to be about, but I've had a serious fear of pregnancy and of just having kids in general. And some of it is probably spiritual, honestly. It's weird because Jacob and I have gotten so many prophetic words. And even the first prophetic word I ever got, someone prophesied over me that I would be an amazing mom. And I've always had a lot of fear about having kids and being a mom. And that was something that Jacob and I actually thought about a lot when we were first married, is I didn't even really know if I wanted kids because it was such a big fear for me. And Jacob has always wanted kids. And when we got married and we did premarital, I kind of made the mistake of them asking you're not really sure about kids. And I was like, oh, I know I'll get there. But I didn't really think through it to the fullest extent. And I think in my head, I did know I would get there. but it's been a rough journey. And one of the things I've just been really afraid of is just like your body changing for forever. I shared this in my testimony, but I struggled a lot with having an eating disorder in high school. I love being fit. I love working out. My propensity is probably towards that like type A, like really caring about how I look. And just the idea of, I think it's more the lack of control than even how you look, but it's just like such a huge surrender of control. Pregnancy, miscarriage, and then even having the kid, birth. There's so many things that happen to your body that are just completely out of your control. And that has always been really scary and hard for me. And so I thought about honestly doing a fitness page because the Lord has taught me so much about what it looks like to not prioritize that and it's something I'm still like actively working on. So it'd be something I feel like I could bring other girls into and talk about, hopefully through pregnancy and just all the different life changes that you have. Just talking about like your identity in Christ as a woman and kind of tying in, it's good to be healthy, it's good to be fit, but also tying in like how God sees us and almost like doing like gym affirmations or affirmations that go beyond just like your appearance, but could also be partnered with like your appearance. Like before you lift, like being like, I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Like I love my body. I love who God made me to be. I haven't seen anyone do gym content really like that before.
I think there's probably a big place in the air quotes marketplace for that because there's so many gym rats where you just look at people and you're like, man, I feel terrible about myself now.
Yeah.
Because they live in the gym and they just show themselves off online and hey, good for you. But making the rest of us normal people feel pretty crappy right now.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like you can go and you can look incredible as you do, but take the focus off of that.
Yeah.
And put the focus on like what the Lord actually says and encouraging other people. I think that would be really great.
Yeah. Or even being like pregnant in the future. I feel like that's something that I would really need. Like going into pregnancy is just like a lot of affirmation and reminding myself of like who God says that I am.
Yeah,
and
as
the
your
beauty.
body changes. And
yeah. And just that I'm more than how I look and I'm more than, you know, what workouts I can do. And even just like your capabilities as like someone who I'm really competitive in the gym too. So someone who can lift heavy or do these things. So that's something I've thought about doing before, but sorry to just like break open that can of worms and talk about it.
It's fine.
It's something I've been really wanting to share. I think honestly, like if you are listening, please send us your prayers because amidst all the busy season and stuff that we have, like we are trying to have an open hand to God's plan. And even in church today, they were talking about surrendering your will to the Lord and like your life to God. And I honestly feel like us even trying for kids right now is really like me laying myself on the altar of like, God, if this is your timing, if this is your plan, like I don't want to get in your way. And if it's not, like we just want to have an open hand and we want to trust you in this season that we're in. But I've had a lot of hard days and it's been really scary to step into, I don't know, even just thinking about that season of life and how much things will change. And I think maybe God is exposing that I'm like a little bit selfish too. So I'm sure we'll talk about that more. And maybe sometime in the next however many months, you guys will see a pregnancy announcement. But also having our first baby be a miscarriage added, I think, a lot of that fear too of just like we don't even know if it's really possible to have a healthy baby. And we know that all things are possible with God, but it's that constant war in my mind anyways of like, are things going to be okay? And like, I want to have faith, but I don't know. Have you been feeling any of that or is that mostly just me?
Yeah, I think that the discussion you and I have had is just, it takes a daily encounter with the Lord to get through seasons like this. No, we can't operate off revelations from the past. We can't operate on last season's encounter. But, you know, there are so many unknowns. And I feel like I've gotten to this place, especially in the concept of having children, where it's just an open hand. And it's like, Lord, you really are the giver of life. You're the sustainer. You're the author, the perfecter of our faith, but also of the children that we want to have. Like, it's a gift from you. That's what your word says. That you form them in the womb, that you knit them in the womb, that you know them by name. And so just releasing that onto God kind of takes the pressure off of us, I think, of understanding, hey, we do our part, which glory, I'll do my part. And leave the rest to the Lord. Seriously. But it's like, just having an open hand just to say, Lord, like, we want to have this in your timing, and we understand that it's going to come to pass when you want it to come to pass. And just surrendering each and every day to him is really the only thing that's helped me forward. Because trying to get too far ahead of myself, trying to predict the future, trying to plan it out. But, okay, it's going to happen this month, and that means we'll have the baby in this month, and then we'll plan our travels around this thing. Like, that's just so anxiety-inducing.
Yeah, it's been really hard because we also just have so much going on. And when I found out I was pregnant the first time, it was kind of an accident. We were talking about starting to try to have kids maybe like 6 months after I got pregnant. So 6 months previous to like us even really trying. And then obviously going through the miscarriage and then kind of being like, okay, well, like, when do we start trying again? And I was having like even more fear than I was before. And then, yeah, the past couple months, I feel like the Lord just really like worked on both of our hearts and worked on my heart in particular of just having an open hand to God. And then I think in my mind, I was like, oh, first time we try, like, we're going to get pregnant. It's going to happen so easily. And so I was like really still trying to control things and like make everything perfect and plan it out and our timing around these trips and all this stuff we have going on. And then we just haven't gotten pregnant yet.
Yeah. So how have you been dealing with that in the day to day?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's been hard to find the balance of having faith. And that's what God's really been challenging me with, is to not let almost like, I don't know if logic is the right word, but there's a lot of logical things I could even think about when it comes to travel or when it comes to, oh, we already had a miscarriage, something bad could happen again, and not allowing myself to like be full of faith and full of hope. And I think that's something that I'm battling every day. And honestly, just trying to spend time with the Lord and trust him. Like what you're saying, it's just like a day-to-day thing. And I do have a lot of faith and a lot of hope, but it also is scary. And there's been times where like with Jacob, I'm like, I just feel like I'm battling so much anxiety and battling so much fear, because I obviously, if you can't tell, I struggle with control. And the Lord is obviously using all of this to really just to be really real and vulnerable, to like uproot that in me. Yeah. And to allow me to have a greater dependence on him. And I was thinking about it just from seasons of my past, of like the most fruitful times I've had and like kind of growth, like in a crazy trajectory. I
You
said
got
that
it.
weird.
You got it.
The times where I've really seen my faith grow so quickly was when I was more dependent on the Lord and when I needed him more. And I just feel like we're kind of walking into a season of that right now, because there's a lot of unknowns and there's a lot of fear. But whatever happens, I think what you were saying, we just want to have an open hand with it.
Yeah. I know we were kind of anticipating another topic, but I kind of want to stay on this for a little bit, if that's okay.
Sure.
Just flow with the Holy Ghost.
Okay.
Can you talk to me? So you had mentioned trying to have hope in this season, and that's actually something that I've seen you've been going after for months and wrestling with and watching sermons, and God's been speaking to you just about what it looks like to have hope in a season of disappointment. Especially, our context is that we were pregnant and we had a miscarriage, and that miscarriage was difficult in and of itself, but it was also because we felt like we had words from God and we really had our hopes up, and we didn't even like think something bad could happen. And then the worst thing happened and we lost our baby, and it was horrible. But how have you gotten back to a place where you can conceptualize hope again towards something that your only experience has been negative? So in other words, you've tried to get pregnant, we lost our baby, but now you're being called by God again to hope, and to hope to have children. That's a really tall task, to hope for something that not only you can't see, but that you've lost before and that you haven't received,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe that other people around you have received. So can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, I think I don't have it figured out. And that's why even this conversation's like, Jacob, I don't know if you saw his face when I brought it up. He's just like, oh God, she's opening this can of worms right now.
This should show you guys we're pretty open-handed with the podcast too. Like we had talked about maybe discussing this, and now that we're in it, I think we could probably sit on this for a little while.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I think we're just open to like having an open and honest conversation. And if I'm being real, like this is in the back of my mind. This is what we're currently going through right now.
Yeah, this is the realest thing, so it's probably good to talk about.
Yeah. But I don't have it figured out at all, and that's why even opening something up like this, like when we shared about the miscarriage, I remember saying I want to share about it because I want to invite people into when we do get the breakthrough. Like I want to invite people into all that we had to go through so that God can be glorified and that other people can celebrate along with us in what God has done. But we're still in the wilderness. We're still in the desert season. And it was funny, kind of this whole conversation God started with me a while ago about hope came through a conversation that we were having with our pastors, actually. They had heard about, I think, our miscarriage probably from me sharing it online. And we were meeting with them talking, and our pastor said something along the lines of he knew a couple who had gone through a lot of miscarriages and loss when it came to children.
Stillbirth too.
A stillbirth,
they had a rough go.
And they, I think, have some healthy children now.
They do.
Yeah, I can't fully remember the details of their story, but he was saying when he was talking to them about what they had gone through, one of the things that they said was to still have hope and to still celebrate. Like he was saying, if and when you get pregnant again, celebrate that life and don't let fear overtake you. And don't allow like the enemy to keep you from being hopeful and full of faith. And when he first said it to me, it actually really pissed me off.
That's okay. Yeah, be honest.
Yeah, I mean, he probably doesn't. I don't know if he listens to our podcast. I don't think he does, but he probably doesn't know because I was like receptive when he shared it. But on the drive home, I was talking to Jacob and I'm like, I don't know. I don't think it's empathetic or it's fair for, you know, like I feel like I should have some reservations and I should have some fear because that's normal. And like, I didn't feel like he was really being understanding of our situation. And I wasn't really necessarily mad at him, but I was just more like, I'm just going to disregard what he said because I don't think it applies and I don't think that it's empathetic or whatever.
Right.
And then I came home and over the coming weeks, like the Lord just kept talking to me about being full of hope. Like literally I remember I opened up YouTube one day and like the first, like a sermon popped up and literally it was like, don't be afraid to hope again or something like that.
Yeah. It was like that. You showed it to me and you were like, you got to be kidding me.
Do you remember what it was called?
No, I don't. It was something along the lines of like,
oh, get your hopes up. That's what it was. Fingers.
Yeah, get your hopes up.
Yeah, I was like, get your hopes up. And my sister ended up sending me a sermon the other day that I listened to. And that also low-key offended me because she said the sermon was really encouraging and stuff. But the sermon said, it was on Lisa Bevere's podcast. It wasn't a sermon. It was a podcast. And it said she watched everyone else get the life she wanted.
Right.
Was the title. And
punchy title, by the way.
Yeah. Good job, Lisa. We love that.
That's good stuff.
Yeah. If you haven't listened to it, you guys should go check it out because it was a really encouraging podcast. But what was hard is my sister was the one that sent it to me. And this is also something we haven't shared, but I'm the oldest of, there's 4 siblings total, 3 siblings, 4 children total. So it's me and then a brother and my sister. And then I have another sister. And my brother and my sister have just had babies within the past year. Mm-hmm. My sister had her baby first. The middle one, the youngest one, is still single. So, boys, if you listening and you want to date my little sister, you're going to have to go through me first.
And me. Good luck.
And through Jacob. But we are, we're looking for a match for her. The Lord has someone great for her. But my other 2 siblings are married, and my sister had a baby first. And then like shortly after, maybe like 5 months after we found out she was pregnant, my sister-in-law, my brother's wife, told us that they were pregnant. So I literally think probably a couple weeks after we miscarried, my brother and his wife had their baby.
Within a week or two. It was very close.
Of the miscarriage. So it was like we had this whole experience of we miscarried, and then I show up 2 weeks later to my brother's house and I'm holding their baby. And it was challenging. It was hard. And, the enemy can obviously use comparison, I think, so easily to detour us from God's calling and plan for our life. And that could be a whole word in itself, is not allowing comparison to rob and steal what God is doing in your life currently.
That's good.
Yeah, because the enemy will use that so easily.
In any area.
Yeah, but it was funny that my sister was the one that sent me that podcast with literally the title of she watched everyone else get the life that she wanted. And I'm like, you have a baby and I don't.
Yeah,
but
that's real. That's so real. Because it's like vice versa. There's things where they could look at your life and be like, well, you have this and I don't.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like envy or whatever you want to call it, of like, and sometimes it's really from a wounded place. And I even think of, I can't remember who the 2 women were, but they were, I think, sisters.
Are you talking about Hannah and...
Was it Leah and Rachel? Where one of them couldn't have children and she despised her sister.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember the story, but it's such a natural human emotion. We really have to be cautious to surrender that to the Lord, because it can take deep root in us and cause bitterness and strife and division amongst, family or close friendships. But that doesn't take away the sting of how difficult that was.
Yeah.
And I remember I had to have a conversation with your brother, my brother-in-law, and just tell him, like, man, it was tough, and actually both my brother-in-laws who had kids, of just like, man, I don't know how to say this because I'm so happy for you, but being around you guys right now is really hard.
Yeah, and they were sending pictures of the baby, like every family group chat.
Yeah, and it's so hard to explain the emotions because you're genuinely happy. Like, I love these people, and I'm so happy for them.
Right.
But then it's just like a knife to the gut of just like, man, we just lost our baby. Like, that should be us, but it's not. And so balancing joy for them with the mourning that we're experiencing was difficult. And I think the best thing that we could have done was be honest about it. And I think that's what we did. And I actually think that was pretty healing.
Yeah.
And it allowed us to kind of mature out of that a little bit.
One of the things, too, that I was really envious about, or that was hard for me not to compare with, was with my sister. Her and her husband, like, they had really kind of felt like they got a word from the Lord about having a baby, too. And it was one of those things where it was like, God spoke to them. They were supposed to have this baby. First time they tried, she got pregnant, and she was just so full of faith and had no issues, like no problems. Her baby's healthy. He's so cute. We love him. He's adorable. And he's like 1.5 now. So
he's a little stud muffin.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
With his basketball hoop.
Yeah, he's really cute. But like, I think too, that was something that was really hard for me to wrestle with as well, just because it was like, we felt like we had words from the Lord, and I felt like God had really spoken to me. And so it was almost this thing of like, just a lot like of a whirlwind of like, did I hear wrong? Like, why does her faith work and mine doesn't?
Right.
Like,
it just
those
brings
type
up
of
weird
things.
questions.
Yeah. And so anyways, my sister was the one that sent me that podcast. And of course, like, you can have a little check. And by the way, my sister is like so pure. Like, she would never rub anything in my face. Like, her intentions in sending me that were 100% positive. But the enemy, of course, is always at work. And he's always trying to get you to like point your frustration or your bitterness at someone else.
He's trying to divide.
Yeah, he's trying to divide. And so I had a little check when she sent it to me, but I ended up listening to it, and It was a really incredible story of this lady who had struggled to have kids and had health issues and all these things. And she literally, one of the things she said was that God taught her to be full of faith and to get her hopes up. She also struggled with singleness. Singleness is another area, I think, too. Like, there's certain things, having kids, singleness, where it's like it's out of your control, really mostly out of your control. And so it can be really hard to wait on the Lord or to have faith or to not be envious of other people that do have it. And that sermon came directly after our pastor talked to us and kind of said the same thing. And I was like, wait a minute. I think he might have been right. And I think that God is maybe speaking to me about this. And so it's something that I am currently wrestling with. And I find myself, like I said before, like swinging sometimes to not as much comparison or jealousy anymore. And I think maybe part of that is my story is a little different from some people. Like, I haven't always wanted kids. Like, kids haven't been the biggest dream of my heart. Like, the biggest dream on my heart was to get married and to have a husband and to be one with someone and to do life with someone.
Check.
And so I got that, and the Lord has blessed me so much with having you as a husband, and having you as someone to support me and love me. And we have our little moments of bickering under a lot of stress, but
we're open about that too.
Yeah. But, you know,
Couple
genuinely, Jacob is like, I couldn't ask for a better husband. So the Lord's really blessed me with that. And kids have always been something that it's been like a tug and pull in my heart, for a lot of different reasons. I think mostly pregnancy, giving birth, and then just like your life changes so much. And I have a very childlike heart, and I love to travel. I love adventure. I love doing the things that I want to do. And the Lord is teaching me, though, and talking to me, like what you said. You always have to realign, I think, the things that you believe with Scripture.
100%.
So that's something I've come back to over and over, of like, kids are a blessing from the Lord, you know, and that's what the Bible says. And so even if there's times where I feel like it could be an inconvenience, that's not what God says. And so I need to realign my values and what I believe and what I think with the Word of God.
That's good.
And I've had to do that, you know, a lot as we've talked about having kids. And also, kids is something that is one of your biggest dreams. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think that, you know, I grew up in a divorced household, 2 great parents, but I never really got the full experience. You know, it was by the time I was 12, I guess, they were pretty much split up. And so from a young age, I was just always, just kind of from a surface level, just hyper motivated to have a good, healthy family and have a bunch of kids. And I just kind of always had that inclination of, I want to be a dad, you know, and typical man brain. I never thought super deeply about that, I guess, but it was just always kind of a dream of mine, you know, just like I want to have a bunch of kids, and I want to be a dad. And that was really the depth of it for me. And, you know, as I've gotten older and matured more, I'm like, okay, that is a big financial responsibility and stuff. But I guess to me, it's a big enough, and the thing that we've talked about, it's a big enough dream for me that I'm like, well, God will provide. We'll figure it out. Like, just to have the kids, you know what I mean?
I'd love for you to share a little bit too of how we like kind of navigated that, because that was one of the biggest, if not the only, besides the pornography stuff, which I didn't know about, that was probably the only other thing that we had a huge difference on going into marriage. And I'd love to hear kind of like your thoughts on how you've navigated that, because I've said some hard things over the years of trying to figure out and work through my fear about having kids and being a mom and all the changes that come with that. And I've talked to you very openly and candidly about that.
Yeah. Honestly, it was pretty messy. I think us working through that, it's been a messy up, down, left, right, tug and pull of like, because I think both of us have our emotions very deeply tied to our side of the fence with that conversation. And so when it got brought up for me the first time, I think I got super upset, probably had a big blow up argument right when we first got married. And it was just really heartbreaking for me, but also I just had never taken the time to consider the ramifications for what that means for you and what it practically looks like to have children. Like, let's get practical, right? I guess I just always kind of 30,000 foot view. I want to be a dad, but I never got into the nitty gritty. And so actually having you give me a little pushback allowed us to go a little bit deeper into those discussions, which was helpful for me. But I think how I navigated it is I actually had to release a lot of control as well. And I had to realize that, okay, if we're going to have kids, it's not going to be healthy that if you're struggling and you're like, hey, I don't know if I want to have children, if I force you to have kids with me and I'm like, you will have my babies, you know, like what kind of relationship is that going to be? And then that's not going to be a healthy marriage for the kids to grow up, and we're going to have a household where you despise me because I forced you to do something. And so I was kind of between a rock and a hard place where I was like, okay, Lord, I also know that Taylor has words on her life that she's going to be a great mom. I've believed since the day I met you that you would be an excellent mom. And so I think I hate to call it a strategy because it's not a strategy. That makes it sound manipulative. But I'll say my strategy or my approach to this has really been to release control to the Lord and just release it to him and be like, God, you know my heart's desires to have children. And so if that's your will for us, would you give Taylor the same desire? That's been my prayer in my secret place, is like, give her heart the same desire for children that I have, that we might come together and this would be a mutual joy and a mutual blessing that we could have together. And then I think also maybe begrudgingly or messily, whatever, trying to release you from it as well, where we've had discussions of that, to be like, hey, I want to release this expectation off of you, and I don't want you to feel like I'm lording something over you, that it has to be this way, and I don't really have a good answer right now. Like, I'm still working through it myself, but I just want to try to like release that pressure off of you. And I think you've told me that was helpful for you as well.
Yeah, one thing that I remember being really hard at the very beginning of our relationship is I remember Jacob telling me that it was kind of like a make or break having kids, which put me in a really hard place. Because the only way I can describe it, it's hard to even explain how I felt. I think I've always known that I would get there and that I would want to have kids at some point. But I was kind of on the fence. And also, yeah, I think it's just, I don't know if it's spiritual. I don't know if it's just like a lot of fear, but I had just a lot of tug and pull. I've always had a lot of tug and pull about kids, where it's like every once in a while I'll be like, oh, I could be a mom. Okay. Also, I was a nanny for a lot of years. So you see and watch a lot of different kids, and you see a little bit more of like the day to day.
You had some rough kids. I don't think that helped.
Yeah.
You had some bad kids that you were like, God, get me away from these kids.
Yeah. And then I've also struggled really heavily with depression and anxiety. I've struggled with suicidal thoughts, and the idea of postpartum really scared me.
Sure.
Like, I remember being really afraid that I would like get so depressed that I would do something that I would really regret in having kids, and just like a lot of, which this is a really real conversation right now. Because there's a lot of people in our generation who feel, I think, the way that I feel and choose not to have kids because of it. Like, I know people personally in my own life that have allowed like the fear of having kids to completely overtake, like maybe even God's calling.
Yeah, 100%.
on their marriage or on their relationship to have
control.
Kids. Yeah, like the need for control is fully overtaken. And I've had words spoken over my life about having kids. It wasn't necessarily like a huge dream of mine, but I think I knew that I would get there eventually. Like, I used to tell Jacob, like, if I feel like I married a guy who didn't want kids, that would not work for me. Like, I think it would be one of those things where I would end up wanting them.
But to have the pressure put on by somebody who wants them makes you want to retract.
Yeah. So
it's a delicate balance.
That was part of the issue, is Jacob told me at the beginning of our relationship, probably not as gracefully as you would have now, because we were both very young.
I mean, y'all being as real as I could, like, I didn't handle this well. Like, maybe I've done some good things in our marriage. This was not one of them. Like, I did not handle this well. I lost my cool. I said some things I regret.
Well, yeah, I mean, you pretty much told me it was he was pretty much saying it was like a make or break in our marriage, and how it made me feel was that, and I remember the conversation where we had this conversation. Like, I remember the exact time I was telling you that, like, I was like, you're making me feel like you would choose children over me.
Yeah.
And you literally, I think for a while said, yeah. Like, what bothered me is I wanted Jacob to tell me that if he had to pick, which this is also maybe kind of messed up.
That was a hard conversation.
Yeah, it was
because
messed up.
Because it felt like you were trying to make me pick in that moment.
Well, I wanted you to pick. Like,
Yeah.
I wanted you to say, if I had to choose between having kids and having you, I would choose you.
Right.
And we had multiple fights where Jacob would not say that to me.
Yeah.
Like, where he could not look me in the eyes and tell me that he would choose me over kids. And that was really hard for me, because with all my fears and everything else, and then feeling like I pretty much don't have a choice because he wants kids so bad, I'm just going to have to do it, or else like he's going to end up resenting me, was like really, really hard, and made all of my fears and all of the things I was struggling with so much worse.
Yeah.
But I do remember eventually you did tell me that you would choose me over kids. Do you remember
yeah,
that?
I had to go to a place and just humble myself and release it to the Lord, because for me, my view of marriage at that time was that children were a part of the package deal. And so when you asked me that question, what I was hearing was you were looking for permission for me to say, we don't have to have kids. That's what I was hearing. Is you were looking for me to say, like, okay, yeah, it's fine. I don't really want to have kids. And that was just like pulling me apart. So I had to get to a place where I was like, you know what? No, at the end of the day, like, well, what if we can't have kids? You know, like, what if we're not physically able to, or something? Like, my first duty and my first ministry is to my wife, not my future children.
Well, we were also already married, so it wasn't really
exactly.
a conversation where you could be like, I would choose the kids over you, because it's like, well, we're already married, buckaroo.
Yeah,
so.
I know. And we didn't have kids.
Yeah.
You got to understand, I think from the environment I was raised in and just the expectations I had on marriage. And by the way, this is really early on, like first 6 months of marriage probably.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Really early on. They were perfectly fused together for me. Like, there was no marriage without children or children without marriage. It was like the concept was fused in my mind. And so for you to kind of, honestly, what felt like a blind side to be like, yeah, I don't actually, however you said it, to be like, I don't actually know if I want kids or whatever. I was just like malfunctioning, and I flipped out, had a super emotional response. And
I need to give
didn't
context.
handle myself well.
I need to give context to this whole conversation too, because going into marriage in premarital, I just want to clarify, we had talked about having kids. Our pastors asked us. Jacob said, yes, I want kids. That was pretty much the length of our discussion about kids before we got married. I said, I think I want kids in the future. I know that God, the Bible says that kids are a blessing. So like, I want to believe that. And I think we'll have kids in the future.
You're like, I think I'll get there.
I think I'll get there. That's what I said in premarital. 6 months into marriage, I was nannying for a family.
That's right.
And I had been nannying for years. And this family in particular, the mom had really bad postpartum and really bad anxiety. And she was also working from home. And the baby was really little. He was probably 6 months old. And anytime he would cry, the mom was just really micromanaging me. Anytime he would cry, she'd be running in. What happened? What'd you do? Like, just freaking out all the time. I felt like I was like going crazy. I think a lot of her anxiety and stuff was like, it was just a hard environment to be in. And then just to be in such close proximity to the mom who was so anxious, and like just feeling like if anything happened, it was going to be like a huge deal, even if nothing really bad was happening. And so I think I came home one day, and that's kind of where the conversation started of like, I don't even actually know if I want to have kids. Because like, this is miserable. this sucks. Like, I don't know if I could do it. And I've said that multiple times throughout our marriage when I've been around kids or had like kind of a bad experience, or when I've gotten really depressed or really struggling with my mental health, of kind of just throwing that out there of like, I don't think I can ever have kids because like this is so hard and whatever. So just to give a little context there, when we first got married, we were not planning on having kids anytime soon.
Right.
The first time we even had a discussion about having kids was like last year, probably, where we were really starting to talk and God was kind of softening my heart and opening up my heart to it. And we both genuinely felt like the timing was right.
Right.
So there was never a point in our marriage either where Jacob was like, I feel like we need to start having kids now. And I was saying no.
Right. Well,
it was more hypothetical conversations that we were fighting about.
Yeah, we're fighting on hypotheticals.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm telling y'all, it was messy. Like we both came into it super hot and emotionally charged, and I don't think either one of us handled it super well, but especially on my front. Like I didn't even know how to explain my wants, needs, desires, and expectations in that category. I had just had this idea, again, 30,000 foot view idea of what I wanted, but I hadn't actually ever thought through it. It was just almost like a part of this fairy tale identity that I had.
Well, and in me expressing how badly I didn't know if I wanted to have kids was really where it came out how badly you wanted kids.
Yes.
So that was something I also didn't really know. And I remember one time I made, probably when I came home from nannying, and I said, I don't want to have kids. Jacob like got teary-eyed and was like, all I've wanted in life is to be a dad. Yeah. And I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Like, I did not know that you wanted it that badly, like that it was that important to you.
Right.
So that also was challenging.
Took a lot of communication. So yeah, I think the way that we got through that is I had to submit and surrender my control of the situation to the Lord. And I think another thing that I did was try to call out the best in you in that area, you know, and like support the idea of you being a great mom, and support like, hey, you can do this, and call out the positives, which would, I guess, try to negate some of the negatives of, you know, and the woes of the situation. But just kind of like a slow thing throughout time of just calling out that identity in you and seeing like, hey, you would be a great mom, and like, I hope one day you will be, like, you'd be the best, you know, stuff like that. So I think those are a couple of things that I had to do to get through that, and that helped overcome and get us to a place where we could kind of mutually make this decision. But the biggest one, which is kind of mutual, is that we both had to do in regards to this discussion, is release control. Mm-hmm. I had to release control of trying to make it happen on my own terms and being like, this is all I want. I want kids. Mm-hmm. Like, I had to let that go and be like, all right, Lord, you know what? It's in your timing. You're in control. I trust you. Mm-hmm. And then you're having to release control on your part in the same manner, just to be like, all right, Lord, like, you're in control of this and I trust you.
Yeah. I think another way that we got through it too was us both being willing to submit to like God's plan and his ways, which this is, if you can't tell already, this is a core theme, I think, of our marriage individually, but also as a married couple, is being submitted to the will of God over your own plans, over your own desires. So we were living in Florida. I loved living in Florida. I wanted to live there for the rest of my life. Out of nowhere, God calls us to Colorado. Where are we sitting right now? In a house in Colorado.
Mile high, baby.
And it's supposed to snow a lot this year, and I am embracing the winter season this year and trying not to complain as much as I did last year. Sometimes do we do God's will a little begrudgingly? Maybe.
Yeah, you know? And I want to go back to that about, we just got off of a relationship series with our podcast. So we talked about singleness and dating and engagement and marriage. And one of the things that we talked about that was really important in finding a partner is somebody who's willing to obey the word of the Lord. Mm-hmm. Somebody who's willing to say, here I am, Lord, send me. Whatever you want, I'm going to do it. And yes, sometimes we're a little Jonah-esque. Sometimes we try to go the other way and we end up in the mouth of a whale. Guilty. But at the end of the day, one of the things that I absolutely love about Taylor and our marriage is that we're going to get where God is calling us. And sometimes it's through hard discussions. Sometimes it's an easy yes. But the Florida one to Colorado is a big one because for Taylor, she said, I will live anywhere in the world, but the one place I will never go back to is Colorado. Like, it was a big deal.
I didn't want to move back home at all.
Sure enough, we're here. And so even that, it might seem like a small thing if you're just listening to this podcast, but it was a big deal. And you did it. And you were like, all right, well, if that's what God's actually calling us to, I'm not going to be disobedient. And I think that's really playing into the kids thing as well, is where we do feel like the Lord is tugging our hearts. And I remember you went to the Live Action Conference, which is the pro-life movement. And you came back from that and you started talking to me about, hey, I think I'm kind of ready to start trying to have kids again. Like, I'm feeling the Lord speaking to me on this subject. And it's just one thing I've always really admired about you, and something that's really critical to a marriage is because what it does is it creates a safety to surrender for you and for me. Is that if we're both surrendered to the will of God, then I'm safe to just let go. And I don't have to try to cling on and grasp for control to get what I want, because I know that mutually we're in the will of the Father, and that is the best place that we can be. And so I don't need to fight and scratch and claw my way to my will. It's like, hey, we're a united front, and we're going to be together. And if it's something I really want and you don't want, or vice versa, like, come what may, we're in the will of God, and we're going to walk it the Lord's way.
Yeah.
It's a huge, huge, huge thing in our marriage that I absolutely love.
Yeah. And that is something on my releasing control that I've really had to do, is kind of forget about Jacob's, I guess, like, desires in the whole thing, and go back to kind of, God, what do you want? Like, what does your word say? And also praying about timing and things. And I think that, we're in that season where we both feel God's open door of timing, to try and to just be more open about it. Because, for before, we've done, this is probably TMI, but whatever. We've done natural family planning, our whole relationship. Or I always say, what I notice? I say relationship when I mean marriage.
I do that too. I did that in the marriage podcast.
Yeah, I know. We did that a lot during the marriage conference. So especially when it comes to submission, just to clarify that whole thing, whenever we said relationship, we meant marriage. But our whole marriage, because y'all know we didn't even kiss up until before marriage, but our whole marriage, we did natural family planning, because I was never on birth control. Didn't want to go on it. Didn't want to mess with my hormones. I honestly couldn't recommend natural family planning enough.
Oh, it's phenomenal.
As like a little side note, like, if you're engaged and you're wanting to get married and looking at birth control, like, I do implore you, don't go on like hormonal birth control, because it can just mess with your hormones so much, and it can cause so many issues in the future. And I had so many people tell me that natural family planning didn't work, and that you were going to get pregnant and all this stuff. But if you have a regular cycle and you are attentive, and now there's things like the Oura Ring, which you can get, that literally just tracks your temperature for you. I was putting a thermometer in my mouth every morning. But what I love about it too is you learn actually how your body works, and you learn about the times that you are and aren't fertile. And like, I didn't even know you can only really get pregnant like a week out of the whole month, if that. Like, it's really like 5 or 6 days out of the month you can get pregnant. So, but we did that for 3 years, and, never got pregnant. And now it's just this time of like, okay, Lord, whenever your timing is, we're open to it. But for me, releasing control looked like going to the Lord and being like, regardless of what Jacob feels, regardless of what I feel, like, what do you want for me?
Yeah.
What do you want for us? And that's what really changed my heart. And I think having a partner that's willing to do that on both ends, having Jacob be willing to release control and just being like, hey, if you don't want this, like, I'm still going to love you. I'm still going to be with you. I'm still going to support you. Like, what I want, where my heart's at. But when Jacob finally came to that place, it gave me the liberty and freedom to seek God without all the pressure. And I don't like being told what to do, guys. That's why submission was so hard for me, because I'm not like, if you tell me just simply because you told me what to do, I'm going to do the opposite. I've been that way my whole life. I've been that way since I was like a little girl. And there's things about that are good, because I do think for myself, and I think part of it is how God made me to just, be stubborn and be independent. But it can also be a super big negative when I'm just stiff arming something that's actually good for me, or even worse, like what God actually desires and wants for me. And so I would encourage you, like, if you are in the place where you have a lot of fears about marriage, I don't want to negate those fears and say that they're not valid. And I want to empathize with you because I have been there and I am there. And every single day I'm fighting those fears actively.
About marriage or pregnancy?
About pregnancy, sorry.
You said marriage.
Did I say marriage?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry, guys. Yeah, about pregnancy. Like, if you have a lot of fears about having kids and those fears are super valid. Like I'm not going to go around them and say that they're not, because I've struggled with that as well. And again, I'm actively fighting that. But the Bible has actually a lot to say about kids and how much they are a blessing. And my grandpa also passed away around the time that I miscarried too. And my grandpa had one son, which is my dad. So my dad was an only child. And my dad was there for my grandpa when he was in hospice and going through. I mean, my dad and my grandpa were best friends, and they were always together. And throughout the couple of years that my grandpa had a lot of health issues, my dad was always with him, always taking care of him. And the last 2 weeks of his life, I mean, my dad was there every single day with him, sitting by his bedside, and their relationship was just so special, and so cool to watch. And sometimes we are selfish in the way that we only think about where we're currently at now and how it would be kind of inconvenient or whatever to have kids when they're little and not sleep and breastfeed and all the things and all the health stuff that can go wrong and you can just spin out, or postpartum. But like seeing my dad and my grandpa, even shortly after we miscarried, kind of like long-term picture of like my grandpa, if he didn't have my dad, I mean, we were the people, my dad and us, my kids and his great grandkids were the people that were actually there for him when he passed away.
Right.
And people who don't have kids, they don't get that.
Yeah, it comes full circle.
Yeah, it does come full circle in a lot of ways. And I mean, the Bible just talks about so much how kids are such a blessing from the Lord, and the Lord is the one that knits them in their mother's womb. And slowly but surely, God is changing my heart, but actively I am fighting those fears daily. And so I would encourage you, if you are in that place where you are really closed off, I don't think it's ever okay to be closed off about anything, to be honest, as a Christian. Like to have a tight grip and want to control any area of your life to the point where you can't surrender it to the Lord. That's kind of like a red flag. If you're going through life and there's something that you're like, anything but this, which is funny because a lot of times then God actually has you do that thing. Right. Like I was like, anything but Colorado. And then God's like, hey, move back to Colorado and you're probably going to be there for a long time. Which actually, it's been such a blessing. And since we've moved, there's been so many cool things. Like we could tell you guys so many stories about all the cool things that God has done since we moved here. Even the town that we live in, down to the people that we've met, to even what God's doing in Denver. Like he brought us into something that he's doing and like weaved us so easily into it. And as much as I hate like the snow and the cold, and I have some bad memories from high school or whatever, like there's been so many blessings that have come from us saying yes to him and moving here. And if you ask me now if I would rather like move back to Florida, like if I could snap my fingers and just have what I want, I'd probably honestly choose to stay here. Did you know that?
Nope.
Really?
No. I thought you'd still go back to Florida. I
mean, I do miss the sunshine and stuff of Florida.
I know it's been growing on you.
Yeah, it has been growing on me, but I think it's even just like if I really had the choice fully to do what I want, like at this point, it's like, I mean, going back to, there's certain things about Florida where we lived that were really hard. Like everything was super spread out.
Yeah, it's inconvenient.
Yeah, it was kind of inconvenient. All of our friends moved away from the town that we were living in.
Yeah.
Like when I actually think about it, we really didn't have any friends there anymore.
It's like, what is there to go back to? You know, and now you can see everything that God's doing in Colorado.
Yeah, like it was
Enough
just our time to leave.
Passed that you can see, like, okay, better to leave while you're ahead than to stay and be disobedient and get burnt out and everyone move away, and then you have negative memories and now you have to leave.
Yeah.
One thing I want to say to kind of, not to wrap it up, but to wrap up that idea, I guess, is, you know, the Bible talks a lot about hope. Like, I even pulled up some verses before. May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace in believing, so that by the power of the Holy Spirit you may abound in hope. Like, one of God's names is literally the God of hope. That's in Romans 15:13. And there's a million other verses about hope. But something interesting about hoping in this season that I would want people on the other end of the screen to hear, I suppose, is that hoping doesn't always look really clean and easy.
That's really good.
Sometimes it looks like, there's a great quote by John Wayne that says, "Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's being scared to death but saddling up anyways." And, you know, you're scared to death to ride that horse, but you get on it anyway. That's courage. And sometimes I think that's what hope looks like.
And I've been a little scared to death to ride this horse, if you know what I mean, but I have been saddling up. I've been doing it day in and day out.
I'm actually speechless, bro. You did not just say that. You guys remember when I told you that Taylor's unpredictable and you never know what you're going to get?
He set me up. Tell me you guys weren't thinking that. Saddling up. Come on now. In the context of what we're talking about, I had to.
This is a marriage podcast, so get over it. That's freaking hilarious. Nice. Good one.
Thank you.
Well done. But no, I think in context of hope, that is important. It actually is important. That sometimes to hope is an action. It's not just a mindset, but it's an action. And it's putting yourself in the place of expectancy. So like for us, that literally looks like trying for kids. Like that is what hope looks like in this season. And so a good question that you can ask yourself is, what does hope look like in my season? And what is the action that I can associate with hope? How do I put myself physically, spiritually, mentally into the place of expectancy?
That's good.
Hope isn't just a feeling. Hope isn't just this idea that, well, I really hope it's going to happen. Like, hope you have a great day. Hope this, hope that. It's no, where's the physical response in my life to this thing that I am hoping for? Like, how is the faith measurable in my life? What is the action that's going forth that's evidence of hope in my life? And for us right now, that's, hey, we don't have it all figured out. Hey, this is scary. Hey, this is something that's really difficult for me, and I'm swinging on the pendulum. Some days are great, some days are horrible, and my mind will change throughout the whole time, but I'm still putting myself in the place of expectancy, and I'm still pursuing hope with action. And I think it's really important to clarify, because the word hope for us is just, it's lost all of its power. You know, the word hope is just kind of like, well, yeah, you hope something happens. That's like what, you put a good thought towards it and then you just move on. That is not the biblical definition of hope at all. Like, the biblical definition of hope has action behind it. It's expectancy, expecting God to move on your behalf because he's called you in accordance with his will to something. And it's something that you're doing right now. And so I really admire that about you. And it's hard and it is messy, you know, and just because you read a Bible verse that tells you to hope, it doesn't mean that it's going to be easy, and it doesn't mean that it's going to be clean. But God is inviting you into expectancy so that when the thing comes, you get to rejoice from a place of faith and expectancy. You know, and that podcast you listened to, I think, talked about that a little bit, about wouldn't you rather come from a place of expectancy and receive what God has given you than just gripe and complain and drag your feet the whole time just to end up at the place of blessing and be like, wow, why did I spend so much time, you know, fighting the will of God when I could have been partnering with him in hope and faith instead.
Yeah. What God's been talking to me specifically about hope and faith, like in regards to pregnancy, but I think that you can apply it to any part of your life, is specifically faith and hope start with a word from the Lord. And I want to clarify that too, and the difference between just hoping and believing in whatever you want to happen. That falls more into like manifestation, which don't manifest. Like manifesting is not biblical.
Manifesting is not of God. It is demonic. I want to be super
Manifesting
clear.
is pretty much the opposite of surrendering your will and your desires and your plan to God. It's you picking what you want to happen and trying to will it without involving God at all. And it's not biblical. So please don't be manifesting over here. And it also doesn't work. Okay, and if it does work, then it's demons and the enemy allowing some things to happen. And it's borderline witchcraft.
No, it's not borderline. I'll probably be more bullish on that than Taylor, so you guys can blame me. Manifesting is witchcraft. It has its roots in witchcraft. It is 100% non-biblical and 100% of the enemy. There's only one God. His name is Jesus. You are not God. You cannot make things happen. And if you are agreeing with the powers and principalities of the air, like remember, the Bible says our war is not against flesh and blood. There are spiritual enemies and spiritual darkness. And so if you're trying to make things happen in your own life and command things to happen in the spiritual realm that is not surrendered under the lordship of Jesus Christ, who are you communicating with? Like, who are you calling on for their power if it's not God? And if it's your own, that's seriously questionable as well. So, yeah, no, I'll be more bullish on that than you. That's fine. I don't agree with it at all.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Anyway.
It's not good, so don't be doing that. But in order to have faith or in order to have hope, like true hope, biblical hope, you first have to have a word from the Lord, and you have to be aligned with like what God is doing and what God is speaking over your life. So for us, like we believe really clearly that God has given us many words about having kids. And so I know that sometime in my future, maybe I'll be like Abraham and Sarah and I'll be 80 years old. I don't know. Like, I don't know the timing. I don't know God's plan. All I know is that this is a word spoken over our lives that we've had, and that at some point, like, I believe that God will bring it into fruition. But the first thing you have to do is get a word from the Lord.
Yeah.
And you have to know what God is saying and what God is doing. And you also have to release control even of that word. That's something that our pastor literally talked about this morning. Was God will give you this word and then you try to make it happen. Don't we see this so much in dating relationships where God will tell someone that is your husband and you try to make it happen in your own timing, or you go up and tell them that you're my husband or you're my wife, and you blow the whole thing up and you start a bunch of drama, and maybe you were wrong, or maybe the timing wasn't right, or God tells you that this is a great example. This is a great example. God will tell you that you have a word of the Lord over your life about being married and about being a wife. And so instead of waiting for the person that God has for you, you go on Christian Mingle. You go on online dating. I don't have anything wrong with online dating, but the point is, are you in control or are you letting God be in control?
Right.
Are you trying to make it happen in your own strength and in your own timing? Or are you having an open hand? You know, I think it's about heart posture too.
Yeah, it's really important.
Yeah.
It is the heart.
Yeah, it's all about heart posture. And there are times too where I think there is liberty, and God said, hey, you know, you're going to be married, or you get a word of the Lord about that. And so you're like, well, I want to put myself out there. I want to be open to what God has. You know, that's different than getting in a bad relationship.
Trying to force it.
And forcing something to happen.
Yep.
So want to clarify the difference on that. But those are just some examples. And most of the time when you do that, you have to be, once you get a word from the Lord, you have to be open to God's timing and God's plan and his ways in how he wants to bring that about and what he wants to do with that. And so that was the first thing that God really spoke to me about hope and faith, was I needed to have a word and I needed clarity from him. And I felt like he was able to give that to me. The other thing that I've been praying a lot in this season was the story of, I think it was the blind man or it was the leper, but God came up to him and asked him if he had faith to be healed. And he said, like, I have faith, but help my unbelief. Do you want to look up that verse?
It's the think the disciples said that, Lord, help our unbelief.
Lord, help my unbelief. It's just that specific verse I've been praying a lot. I actually haven't gone and read like the full context of it.
Oh, that's the father of the child. That's the
Okay, yeah.
what's his name?
Yeah, I knew it was in regard to healing, and Jesus asked him, like, do you have faith for me to do this? And he says, I have some, but help my unbelief.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've been praying over and over myself. And that's what's so cool about having a relationship with God is it's like, okay, God, I know that you've said this. And so far my circumstances like haven't been too great. And also, you guys know part of this story too, but I've had a lot of health issues in the past and have prayed for healing before and not received healing and had to go through a really long health journey. I struggled with insomnia, didn't get direct healing from that, had to go through a long journey of walking with the Lord through a lot of fears through that. And so now it's like almost my fear of health concerns and pregnancy and kids and all these things is at like an all-time high. And in the times where doubt and fear have overcome me, I've had to pray, God, help my unbelief. Like, please, like, minister to my heart and help me in the areas that I don't feel like I have the capacity or I don't feel like I have the ability to have faith and to, like, really hope. Because I've even asked myself, like, am I really, like, even hoping or, like, do I really have faith? Because it's so back and forth and such a pendulum swing. And so in those moments, like, it's okay to also ask the Lord for an extra amount of grace and an extra amount of faith.
It's really good.
That's like beyond your own abilities even to have or to come up with.
Yes. Yeah, that's Mark 9:24. It's the father of the boy with the unclean spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus says all things are possible for the one who believes. The father of the child cried out and said, I believe, but help my unbelief. And that's when he commanded the mute and deaf spirit to leave the boy, and it left. And that's so critical, I think, just being real with where we're at. You know, like it's one thing to just sit here on a podcast and for you and I to be like, we're full of faith and we're fully believing. And it's like true, but it doesn't really encompass the difficulty of it, you know? And like one day I really do fully believe that the Lord is going to give us a child. I fully believe that in his timing, we'll see this fulfilled. Mm-hmm. And I fully believe that we'll get to look back on this conversation one day and laugh and be like, wow, look at what God did, right? But you guys listen to this podcast, you're getting to see us in the middle of the struggle right now. This is real life for us. Like, this is not easy. It's confusing. And it's not like life just stops so that you can just focus on this one thing. We got a billion other things going on. We got work, we got life, we got family, we got travel. So many things going on. And then in the back of your mind, there's just this thing that you're dealing with, that you're trying to have hope in amongst the billion other things that you have going on every day. And so this is the realest look that you could get into our lives about what it looks like to have, or to try to have hope in a season of disappointment, and to seek God in faith in a season where you're clinging for something that he's given you a word on. But yeah, I think the realest thing that you could do, honestly, is just like the Father in Mark chapter 9, to recognize the measure of your faith and then go, Lord, I really do believe, but help my unbelief. Mm-hmm. Help me with the area that I can't muster up any more belief in. Like, I need you to assist me in that area. I think that's the realest thing that we could do right now.
It's a big part of the Christian walk is fighting your flesh. And I was thinking about Paul. We were talking about Acts today in church and how Paul always says, like, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak.
Come on.
Like, that's how I feel right now, is like my spirit is willing and stirred up a lot of times for like the things that God is speaking over us. But then my flesh will come in and like say such crazy things, either about just like having fear about having kids, or like even just almost like this fear of like, God, don't make me look like an idiot again. You know, like one of the things the girl did in the Lisa Bevere podcast is she said that she has a lot of faith. Like, I'll give it to her. Like, she probably has the gift of faith, but she, in her singleness, bought like a ring that she was going to give her future husband someday. She bought like baby clothes before she could have kids. And there's been a couple things like that we've tried to do to step out in faith and just say like, okay, God, like, you know, we're trusting you that we're going to have kids and that you're going to come through and be faithful. But you'll have this thing in the back of your mind that's like, you're going to look like an idiot again. Like, you're going to look like a fool. And I think even talking about it on the podcast is obviously putting everything that God's saying to us out there before it happens.
Yep.
And to have this fear of like, he's not going to come through. Like, he's not going to do what he said he's going to do. And like, you're just going to look really dumb, you know? And your flesh feels that. And it's, what's crazy is, and this is what I'm realizing more and more in my own struggle, is sometimes faith is actually illogical. And there's been a lot of times where I've said it's logical and understandable for me to have fear in this situation. It's valid. But that doesn't negate what God is calling me to do and walking literally in the opposite of logic.
Yep.
And you see that so much throughout Scripture. It's not even funny. And God's been really challenging me with that, because even as a counselor, we're trained so much to be like, that is valid. That is understandable. And there is grace a little bit for that. And there's grace for the tug and the pull. And it's not something that we should shame ourselves for falling into. But Noah and the ark is a great example. Yep. God called him to build a boat when it had never rained before. Like, that's crazy. And it took him a long time. We just skip over that story like it's whatever. But I think, didn't it take him like years to build the boat?
I think it took 40 years.
It was an insane amount of time of him building this boat.
I'm gonna fact check that live.
Yeah, you should look it up. It took him an insane amount of time to build this boat. And can you imagine how many times he probably thought, I am a total idiot?
50 to 120 years is the scholarly estimate.
Like, this makes no sense at all. And everyone was also making fun of him. Like, his friends were pointing at him and laughing at him and being like, you are so dumb. You did not hear from God. This is not going to happen. Or like Abraham and Sarah, when Abraham told Sarah, we're going to have a baby. And she
laughed.
She laughed.
Isaac means laughter.
Yeah. She laughed. She was like, this is actually impossible. It logically makes no sense whatsoever. But isn't that where God gets all the glory?
100%.
Like, isn't that where he does the best miracles, is in our weakness, in our struggle, where we feel so inadequate, where we feel so finite and incompetent, and we feel like logically it makes no sense. Like, isn't that where God comes through?
100%.
And I do want to be the type of person that when God comes through, and that's why I'm choosing to talk about it today. That's why we shared the story of our miscarriage before, because I'm so confident, like my spirit is so stirred up and confident that God will be faithful to his promises to us, because he's always been faithful. And am I a little annoyed at his timing? Yes. Am I still a little confused as to how it's going to look and how everything's going to play out and what he's going to do? Yeah. Am I a little fearful that we're going to have another miscarriage or a stillbirth, or that something's going to go wrong? I am. But I'm choosing to have faith, and I'm choosing to trust the Lord, and I'm choosing to declare over and over the word that he's spoken over us. And I think that is how you grow your hope. That's how you grow your faith, is in the midst of fear, you declare and you speak out what God has said. And you keep opening your hand. Like, every time you feel your hand get a little tighter and you feel that sense of like even this month, I'll be really real. I told Jacob, I was like, I don't know if I can keep trying like every single month. Like, I just need to know when I'm going to get pregnant, and then I'll just know, and it'll feel good. And I don't have to keep every single month taking a pregnancy test and like having like, it's so anxiety inducing.
Yeah.
I just want it to stop, and I just want to know when, you know. And like, I had to open my hand again. Like, you just have to, I had to saddle back up on that horse.
Okay, chill,
You know?
bro, chill.
But seriously, that's what it looks like for us practically. You know, like, I have to be like, okay, God, like, we're going to be open again this month, as hard as it is and as stretching as it is. Yeah, that's, I'm going to stop myself because.
Thank you. Good stopping point.
Yeah. But I am curious because you haven't shared what this has been like for you. And I remember when I miscarried, what was so hard for me too was also feeling like this is your actual dream.
Yeah.
And I know you talked about releasing control and all that, but what has it been like for you just not knowing what's going to happen and releasing, a dream for you, truly?
Yeah, I'm full of childlike faith, to be honest.
Are you struggling as much as I am?
I don't think so. And that's okay to say.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have different.
Well, thank God, honestly, right? Like,
Yeah.
if we were both down bad, it'd be pretty hard.
Yeah, and we also, you're fearing different things than I'm fearing too, like the body change and all that. Like, I'll probably eat a few more donuts, but I'm not the one having to carry the baby. So we're also struggling with different fears. You know what I mean?
You'll probably eat a few more donuts.
Yeah,
Is
like
that supposed to be like a negative thing?
No, like they always say, like dads gain weight, like pregnancy sympathy weight.
Oh, so you're just saying you might get a little thick too?
Yeah, it's just a joke.
All right.
Yeah, let it go. No, I think I'm doing fine. In the sense that the miscarriage brought me to such a low, and I had to wrestle with God at, I don't know, like in such a profound way. And I've shared the revelations that I got with him previously on the podcast, but just understanding the man of sorrows, the son of suffering in Isaiah, how he's in the valley. You know, there's a measure of his presence that's only in the valley. And I think just encountering him in that deepest place to understand that he's a God who weeps. He's a God who sympathizes because he is in the valley, right? That he understands the struggle and the mess has really marked me and changed my approach to God in the future, even when it comes to faith. To say that, like, really come what may, I suppose, is kind of my mentality. That I no longer have this deep-rooted fear that if I'm not on the mountain, I'm not in his presence. And I don't know if that makes sense. I'll try to verbalize this the best that I can. But I'm just in a place where I understand that no matter what happens, like if we try and we don't have a baby right now, yes, it's sad and yes, it's hard. But my heart genuinely is, well, the Lord is the giver of life. And if he's spoken this word over us, then that simply means that it's not his time. And it's just as simple as that. Like, I'm just in this simple place, just a simple trust. And I'm not trying to overcomplicate it, because I tried to overcomplicate it in the miscarriage. And I wrestled, and I literally would use the word of God almost against God and be like, explain yourself. And I'd try to solve all these equations. And now I'm just in this place where I'm like, you know what? I'm really not in control. We're not in control of our lives. And as desperately as we would like to be, we're just not. And if God has this word over our lives that this is what he's going to do, then I'm going to trust that that's what he's going to do. And I'm going to do my part, and I'm going to pray, and I'm going to seek him, and I'm going to trust him with you and your body and our child. And I'm just going to say, Lord, like, I'm going to ask for your grace and your mercy in this season, and I'm going to ask for your favor, and just do what you said that you would do. And just pray blessing over that. And that's where I'm at. It's just keeping it simple, I guess, you know? Trying not to overcomplicate things, and just trying to have an open hand, just to say your will be done, Lord, and trying to stop predicting it too. You know, it's easy to be like, well, God's will is this, and it's going to happen this way, because really that's me trying to control it. I just think I'm in a place of an open hand, just realizing how much that he is God and how much I'm not, and just humbling myself and just allowing him to do what he wants to do in this season. And if it takes a few months, it takes a few months. but I really am full of expectancy that he's going to do what he said he's going to do, and then he's going to do it in his timing. That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, that's really good. You said something too that sparked another thing that I feel like God has been talking to me about too, of just like how we aren't in control. And obviously God is in control. And there's been so many times in my life where you're not in control and you've been like, what the heck? Like, I hate that I'm not in control. And it's a scary feeling. Like, it can feel like you're free falling, or that, yeah, you have nothing solid to grab hold of. But I'm reminded of how often me not being in control was actually a good thing. And God being in control was like way better for me than when I was in control. Like, I've shared, the first guy I ever dated, if it were up to me, like, I would have married that guy, and it would have been a total train wreck of my life. I'd probably be divorced or something. And God divinely really intervened in that situation and saved me from continuing a relationship with him. Like, that's just one example I can think of. But it reminded me of in the Old Testament, when the Israelites God would do something like amazing in their lives, God would call them to build altars. Like, you see that over and over throughout scripture, of building these like altars of remembrance of his faithfulness and of his goodness. And I also believe that that can be very applicable to us today.
Yeah.
When you are in a season of fear, fighting with your faith, and trying to hope and trust in God when your circumstances aren't aligning, and remembering his faithfulness and remembering the times where you weren't in control and he was in control, and it was actually a really good thing. And it actually was what was best for you.
Yeah.
And when you were saying that, I was just thinking, like, you're like, I just realized, I'm not in control. I'm like, well, yeah, actually, thank God that we're not in control.
It's the best place to be. It
is the best place to be. And to not just not have any control and just be full of fear, but to not have any control and be surrendered to the control and plans of God.
Yeah.
Even when it's harder, it doesn't make sense. Just how beautiful it is to be in that place. And you don't realize the beauty of it unless you look back and you remember, like,
That's
who
so
God has been to you and how he's come through for you when you've really trusted him.
That's so important.
Yeah. And it's still scary, but I mean, that's just real. That's just where we're at.
Yeah.
And we'll keep you guys updated, I guess, when the time is right.
Well, baby, thanks for being so real and honest. I mean, it was cool. We had a completely different discussion planned today. We'll do that next week. Yeah. But I'm glad that we talked about this, and it's kind of like a laying stones to an altar ourselves, an altar of remembrance, to look back and say, like, look at what the Lord has done. It's like when Joshua crossed the Jordan, and they stood in the Jordan with the ark, and it divided the waters. The Israelites crossed over, and they built an altar there of stones, and its purpose was so that the next generation, when they would ask their fathers, what is that monument? They would tell them, let me tell you about the faithfulness of the Lord when we crossed that river. That's kind of what we're doing right now, even with this podcast. We're laying stones in faith to say, we'll be able to look back on this and say, look at what the Lord did. Look at what God did. And I'm really believing that.
Yeah.
And I've seen enough in my life that I'm not going to demand that he do anything else, that he prove himself, that he prove his love and his trustworthiness in order for me to surrender and just trust him. Like, it's high time, Yeah. He's done enough.
I've thought too, like, even today in church, I was thinking about if you knew someone specifically, like personally in this life, that had died for you, and you had witnessed that, like, you would trust their intentions.
And then they rose from the dead.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But even just,
like, I trust
even
you.
just the fact of like imagine how much that would mark you.
Right.
What was the movie that Spider-Man. We literally went and saw the new Spider-Man movie, and that scene where Tom Holland gets in front of the girl.
Spoiler.
Oh, yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Oh, yeah. Spoiler. Sorry. Yeah, where Tom Holland, he jumps in front of the girl and he takes the bullet for her.
Yeah.
And just how much that marked her.
Yeah.
Like.
Changed her life.
Yeah, it changed her life. Like, she's never going to look at Tom Holland, hypothetically, and question his intentions for her.
Right.
Question his intentions towards her.
Yeah.
But it's so crazy how quickly we turn on God and we turn on Jesus even after the cross.
Yeah.
And we just negate that and we throw it all to the wayside. And it's understandable in some ways because we weren't there. We didn't actually witness it. You know, we didn't see it. But we know that he did do that historically. And, you know, biblically, we know that that actually happened. And I think always turning back to the cross, too, is such a, it's such an anchor in times where you feel like you're on that boat that's rocking, or like Peter. I think about Peter when he was stepping out onto the storm. He had to keep his eyes on Jesus. Like, you got to keep your eyes on the cross.
That's us in this season.
Yeah, like you really do. You got to keep locking eyes with him. You got to keep your eyes on the cross. Oh, yeah, Jesus walking on the waves.
That's us.
Funny. That's literally us. We're not in the photo, but you can put us in there. Anyways, I think also faith is always tied to waiting most of the time.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're in a waiting season, you're in a faith season, because faith is being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we don't see. So faith is believing in and hoping in something to happen before it happens. So that is tied to waiting. And waiting can be really hard. But I always think of the verse, and I don't know if you're pulling up this verse or if it's a different one, in Psalms that says, like, those who wait on the Lord will renew their strength.
It's Isaiah 40.
Oh, my gosh. Is it really?
They who wait on the Lord, or have it here, but yeah, I know. It's Isaiah 40:31.
That's not the same verse?
They who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint.
Is that the verse you actually pulled up, or is this a different one?
Yeah, it's right there.
Oh, so we were on that same wavelength.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that verse is so cool because it says that those who wait on the Lord will get renewed strength, which that is also doesn't make any sense and isn't very logical. And then it says they will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not faint. Like, that verse in itself seems illogical. It seems confusing.
Yeah, and I think that's because we think waiting is passive. But biblical waiting is not passive. It's pursuit of him. He is the waiting. You know, waiting for what? Well, ultimately for him to move, right? But he's not withholding himself in a waiting season. He's available to us in the waiting. And so the reason that we get filled with and we get stirred with faith and conviction and power and expectancy in waiting seasons is because we have access to him and access to faith in the wait. That's
really good. Yeah. It also says that those who wait on the Lord, not just wait on anything, not just
waiting on manifesting.
Yeah, not just manifest whatever they want to happen, but those who wait on the Lord and on his words and his vision and his plans for their life. That's where your strength is renewed, and that's where you find hope. And faith in the Bible is what moved God's heart. Faith was something that Jesus talked about so much in the Bible, and that's what he was always talking to his disciples and other people about. And he would criticize people and say, you have little faith or you have great faith. You know, we want to be people as Christians of great faith, and faith is a muscle that gets stretched in the waiting.
Yes.
And
that's good.
And so if you're in that season, you're right where God wants you to be. You know, if you're in that uncomfortable spot where you're feeling that tug of fear versus faith, and you're trying to choose faith and hope, like, you're in a great spot, because that is like God's probably one of his biggest desires for us is to have more faith and to grow our faith. And that only comes through the waiting. It only comes through being unsure of what's going to happen next.
but sure of who's in control of what happens next. That's the key. You're unsure of what, but you are sure of who, and his name is Jesus. That's the power of waiting.
Amen.
And that's what we're in right now. So welcome to our journey.
Welcome to our journey. And thank you guys for listening to this episode. We love y'all. We can't wait to see you again soon. Bye.
Bye, y'all.